Well, it was one of those very exquisite synchronicities, and it was one of those moments in my life, and I didn't know it at the time, but when the bowl showed up, what happened was that life as I knew it began to shift. A friend of mine called me up one day and said, "Have you ever heard of these things called crystal singing bowls?" This was 1998 or 1999. I said, "No, I didn't." And she goes, "This is totally up your alley." And I said, "Okay." So I ordered one that day, sight unseen, and it arrived a couple of weeks later in a huge box. It was one of the classic Frosteds, the big white ones. Big, big box. I took it out of the box. It was very heavy. And I put it on my kitchen table. I took the mallet that came with it, and I struck the side of the bowl with the mallet. I heard the sound, and I burst into tears. I thought it was the most beautiful thing that I had ever heard. That was the very first thing I thought. And then 5 minutes later, I said, "I'm going to make music with these one day." Now, it wasn't until 2005 that actually began to happen. And in the period between when I first had my first singing bowl, 6 weeks later I had 7. And then months after that, I began offering public sound experiences with the bowls and using toning. Toning is a little different than singing, but toning is an experience of creating sound with your body on sustained pitches. And I had groups of people that were toning with the bowls. And I did this for quite some time. And then gradually, I say that whole time, I was fooling around with the bowls with my voice, chanting, mantra, toning, this and this. And the really cool thing is that when you sing with a singing bowl, and well, for me, what happens when I sing with a bowl is that it locks in. There's a certain place in the sound of the bowl and my voice, and it locks in like this, like it's a key and a lock. And all of a sudden, the bowl and the vocal, they start doing this thing together. I can't explain it. I don't understand it really. I'm sure there's a physical, a physics or an acoustical reason for it, but there's something about the sound of my voice and the bowl, and it marries. And it creates this sound. And this sound wasn't present by the bowl itself, and it wasn't present with my own voice by itself, but it became present when the two married together. Now, after I worked with I didn't realize this with the classic Frosteds, but I was just enjoying the experience of singing with them. But then the Alchemy bowls came into my life, these bowls, the very light ones. And actually, in particular, it was this one and another one made of rose quartz. One made of platinum, and yeah, it was 2 rose quartz and 2 platinum that I got. And I began singing with them, and I started doing these vocal improvisations. Now, I've been singing for many, many years, since I was very small, young. And I'm classically trained. I went to conservatory in New York City. I had a career in music for decades. But something happened to me when I began singing with these instruments. And it was like, the only way I can describe it is I was home, vocally, musically, I was finding myself. Now that didn't solidify really until 2005. In my spiritual relationship to myself, to my higher self, in my physical body, and all the work that I had done on my own personal spiritual path began to accelerate exponentially. And I can attribute that, I do attribute that to the presence of the crystal singing bowls in my life. They affected everything, and they changed my music completely. And in 2005, the most miraculous thing happened. All up until this time, I was working in the corporate world, and then for 11 years I was teaching music to young children, and I was doing my music always constantly, but you know, sometimes it would be full-time, most of the time it would be part-time. So it was always there, engaged in my life, but it didn't really open. In 2005, I was in my yoga class. I'm a long-time student of Kundalini Yoga. And I was in my yoga class, and I had made the decision to sell my music teaching business. I was done. I was feeling compelled. There was something in my heart which was burning for years. It was like, you have to make your music, you have to do your music, and you got to record. And I had made the decision, okay, I'm going to record some of the improvisations that I've done with the Alchemy bowls, and possibly do some Gregorian chant or some sacred vocal thing. So I was in my yoga class. I made the decision to sell the business, and I knew that I was opening now to find the right producer to work with. So I'm lying there, Shavasana, after the class, and I hear this music, and it's something that I'd heard time and time again, but I'm listening to it. It was actually a recording of Sanatam Kaur singing. And I said to myself in that instant, whoever did that album, whoever produced that album, that's the person who can record the bowls. He's going to know what to do. And sure enough, I went home that day. I called up my yoga teacher later. I said, who was that person who recorded, who was that person singing? I didn't know it was Sanatam Kaur at the time. And she went and she found his name. She says, oh, it's Thomas Barkey. So I said, oh, great. So I went and did an internet search on him. Lo and behold, he was coming in 2 weeks to Santa Fe. And that was the last time he's been in Santa Fe. This is in 2005. Wow. So I bought a ticket. He was doing a concert with Sanatam. I bought a ticket to the concert. And I went to the concert that evening. And I went up. I got all my courage up, because I thought, oh my God, why would this man even consider working with me? I'm like a nobody. I have no background in recording or sacred vocal music. I have I'm not known by anybody. And here he is, one of the top producers in sacred vocal music in the world. I said, well, I just went. I took a friend of mine, and I was scared. I was shaking after the concert, and I nearly backed out of it. And my friend, I swear, he psychically pushed me on the stage. So I went up to Thomas after it was all over, and I waited. Practically everybody in the building was gone, and I waited until he was finished talking to the last person. And I introduced myself to him. I shook his hand, and he said to me, oh, Ashana. My daughter has a friend named Ashana. She's 5 years old. Ashana. And I felt instantly at home with him. And we decided to work together. It took about 8 weeks, where I presented some materials to him. And he listened to them, and he said, if I was going to produce you, I would move you into the direction of healing music. And so this was the miracle that happened. So I brought all my bowls. I went out to see him in Los Angeles several months later. I brought all my bowls, and I went to record this Gregorian chant and the vocal improvisations. increasingly, over the 2 days of recording that I was working, I was getting more and more agitated, more and more agitated, more and more agitated. There was something in the back of my mind that's going, this isn't it, this isn't it. And so finally, I broke down. I walked into the studio the 3rd day of the recording, and I looked at Thomas and I said, we can't do this anymore. And he was like, oh. I said, I came here to collaborate with you. We have to put the bowls into music. And that was the pivotal point. That choice, that decision changed my life as I knew it in that moment. And an hour later, we had written the Ave Maria. That Ave Maria has gone on to worldwide recognition. It changed my life with my family. Sorry, it changed my life everywhere, because when I was singing this, I had this full-on experience of golden light pouring through me. And I saw my family before me, and I knew that everything that had happened in my life and everything that was difficult and challenging, that everybody had done the best they could. Now I say this because, you know, when we say these things to ourselves, they're mental thoughts. This wasn't a mental thought. This was a knowingness on the core level in every cell and atom of my being, that I knew, on a knowingness that everyone had totally done the best they could. And my heart exploded. And all of the difficulties and challenges that I had around my family and my upbringing and my childhood, they were over in an instant. They were gone. And that sound, that frequency, it was the feeling of Divine Mother, Mother Mary, coming through, pouring in. I could see the light. I was singing in light. And it was coming out of my voice. And that music, as I said, that music, that song, that album went on to reach thousands, tens of thousands of people all over the world. Now it's used worldwide. It's used in hospice, in transition. My friend Denise Cope, she is a hospice nurse, and she tells me that the sound frequency of the Ave Maria, of the All Is Forgiven, the whole album, the sound frequency of that album is the sound frequency of the etheric angelic realm. And that when people are actually leaving their bodies, this is the frequency that they're going towards. And it's so resonant in healing. It feels like you're enveloped in light, enveloped in unconditional mercy, love, and grace. I don't know that I ever could have reached that place without the bowls. I doubt it. Because working with the alchemy bowls refined and attuned me personally, cleared so much for me that I was able to more easily access that myself. And as a result, because I was able to hold it, and Thomas and I were able to come together and compose music for that, what happens is that people listening to that have that experience themselves. And they attune to that, they're able to access it. I have people who write me that tell me they listen to my music sometimes for a year at a time every day. Because it's literally, it's entraining the whole system to the feeling of unconditional love, divine mother energy, grace, the angelic realm, the etheric realm. That realm that is not troubled by despair, depression, suffering, anger, or rigidity. And now I travel all over the world. I've been to Japan, to Canada. Next year I'm going to Europe, and I'm bringing the bowls, sacred sound ceremonies, and vocals, and holding the space for people to find their own connection to their own divinity, their own knowingness of their wholeness, of themselves as light. It is infused in my music, and by grace it is beginning to be infused in my own knowingness. And I hold the space for them that that should be a reality, a remembrance of who they are. And that is my dharma, that's my path, that's my work now. And I thank God